some stuff to talk about. I want to start off with, I think all of us here at this point have seen a little of that flight simulator, Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'll just call it 2020. It is not in the official title, but it is the new flight simulator from Microsoft. I have played a decent amount of it. It is currently in the back end, no longer in my back end, but in GameSpot, CBS's back end processing. So that might go up soon. I like it. I think it is, make no mistake, a flight simulator. Off the ticks the boxes of very nice interior cockpits rendered lovingly.
I would say Forza-esque in its attention to detail of cockpits.
It also has. I'm gonna move my mouse for a second here just to make sure everything is okay on my screen. It's got a store where you can buy planes because there are also 3 different versions of this game. I should mention. Each version, there's a regular, a premium, and a premium deluxe, each version coming with slightly more planes and also kind of bespoke hand-touched airports. You'll get more of those, not substantially more, but I think it's like 5 or 6 or so more per version you go up. And that's because most of the terrain here is rendered using satellite imagery. I assume some kind of Bing maps or whatever
Bing,
they have,
baby.
whatever they have going
definitely
on.
Bing.
And it's I keep wanting to say Google Maps, which I don't think this is, but it is using satellite imagery, which then kind of extrudes up the houses. It makes everything 3-dimensional, and a lot of it, as you get close to it, you're like, yep, okay, that looks like somebody stretched out a JPEG and wrapped it around a building. But that being said, it works for the most part while you're in a plane, and then again, that's why you have some of these more touched by artists and people at who's it? Asobo? What's the developer?
Asobo is the studio.
The studio.
And there's like some AI company that's listed on it too.
So you'll so like one of them is SFO is one of the ones you get in the premium deluxe version, and that's a very good looking airport when you're in SFO. It looks very much like SFO, and it doesn't look phonied or faked at all. So you can see some of that in the quick look. So there's that part. I have found the tutorials in them pretty good for getting you off the ground, understanding a bit of jargon, and then getting you back onto the ground and kind of setting you up for the very basics of flying a plane. Hey, you're gonna tilt the stick, or you're gonna tilt your controller this way and this way to move. You're gonna want to use brakes sometimes. You're gonna want to use, I don't even know if they go into flaps actually, but it's
in the tutorial.
Yeah, it's pretty basic in terms of what they want you to do. But
pull the stick back and hope for the best.
But kind of fundamentals, like to land the plane, you're going to want to kind of circle around until you get to an approach vector. That's going to be important. Don't just try and come in and land sideways on a runway.
Learn the hard way.
Whatever. I played Pilot Wings. I know how to do this. I don't worry about approach vector. Come on.
So I think that stuff is pretty basic. I said this in the quick look, so I'm going to repeat a lot here, but there is going to absolutely be a cottage industry on YouTube and other channels for how to fly this particular plane, because that stuff does not exist in the game right now. If you jump from your Cessna, which is kind of the very basic plane they start with, which is kind of a lawnmower with wings, and move your way up to a 747, you're just jumping around, and it's not like they're like, okay, you're in a 747 now, let's go over the basics. You're just kind of flying it.
It's a totally different kind of flying altogether.
Yeah.
I should have recorded myself with like my first half hour of this game where I was just like,
were you watching the install progress for the first?
No, that was the first 15 hours. But when I actually got the game to run, it must have been amazing. And I wish like there was a real pilot watching me too. It was just like, look at this idiot. I just think there's something so amazingly hilarious that this game is exactly what it is, right? Like, I know I've played Flight Simulator before. I know that's a thing, but there is such a feeling of helplessness where I don't know. I didn't really know what I was doing. I kind of just went into the medium mode and I I tried to go Newark to
assist mode,
SFO in like a propeller plane because I'm a fucking asshole, and it was great. I crashed right away. It's just so strange to me that they're just like, no, this is literally the cockpit of the plane you're in, and you have to fly this now, you idiot. Turns out, I don't know how to fly a plane, you guys. I don't know about you.
I mean, that helplessness is more or less what has determined that I am never actually going to buy and play this game, but I am going to watch so many other people play this game. I am so excited to watch people who know what the hell they're doing play this game. And especially also some people who maybe don't know what they're doing. Vinny, hi.
Hi. Yeah, so I think it is a flight simulator. It is a game there to simulate flying a plane. You have at least 3 levels of assists at the base level. You have like, easy, medium, and true to life, I think is what they call it. And then it gets more granular. You can go into any of those base settings and set like, okay, I want true to life, but I want to turn collision off, or I want to turn these other things off. So you can go in there. I found it pretty approachable. Drew said he tried with a controller and was fine. It said it felt okay with the controller and fine to play. I was playing with my my flight stick, the HOTAS I have here, the Cytec X52. And this is important, I think, for people who are jumping in here, that was immediately recognized by the game, not only as a controller with a picture of the thing in the game and all the buttons laid out, but Drew's flight stick, which is a CH product, was not, which I thought was hilarious that they have this like laser ship style HOTAS in there, but not Drew's actual flight yoke and and all that stuff in there. I'm sure they will add. I shouldn't say sure. I would place money down that they will add this stuff over time and products in over time.
It seems like they have a lot to do to this game over time. Like I uninstalled it because I've been having so much trouble. I've been unable to even get into a plane. I launched it, it started downloading, and then I had to close it because I had to do other things with this computer and could not let that music just play for the hours it needed to download. It's like additional, because like the initial download is like 9 gigs or something insane like that. And then it's like, and then you launch that and it's like, all right, let's download another 200, 300 gigs of stuff. Where you want to put it? Like, not on my SSD, I guess.
Which using the Microsoft Store one defaults to like, we'll just put this on your C drive. You're cool with this? Or just right in your documents folder. And it's like,
right, yeah,
no, put it on your desktop. There you go.
Yeah. So, so I had to close it, reopened it, and it seemed to resume, I guess. And it eventually just kind of brought me to the menu. I don't know if it finished the install or what, but it did eventually bring me to the real menu, and then I was able to get in there and turn on all the assists, and it gets you to this menu where you pick like, oh, what airports do you want to do? What plane do you want to fly? And I was like, give me a jet with all the assists on, and let me go from. I'm going to tell you that I'm going from SFO to Seattle, but who knows? Let's see what happens. And then there's just a button marked fly, and I click the button marked fly, and nothing happened.
That's a bummer.
And I just kept clicking the fly button over and over again. It did not load. It did not say like, hey, you didn't pick an airport, you jack off. Like there was no indication that it was like anything one way or the other. So I did that a bunch and then started wondering, well, maybe me closing it while it was downloading that stuff broke that install and it just doesn't know that. And well, maybe I just need to just delete this entire thing and try later. So that's what I did. And I have not re-downloaded it yet to try.
I've not heard 2 of the same stories with installing this game. Like I went and started downloading it because Vinny was like, "Oh, it's a project, so start now, and maybe by the weekend we can play together." And man, so I started downloading, and I got to, first I had the bar stall out for me, and I let that sit for a half hour with no progress, and then just closed it all down, started it over. It began downloading this thing, and man, there's not a way to turn off that music that I knew of. So that music became the theme song of my life for Tuesday or whenever the hell this came out. So that was a thing. And then I got to a place I had then it crashed at some point where I wasn't watching. I came back to my computer, restarted the program. It got me into
I'm sorry, can I just interrupt you for a minute because there's a bunch of people in chat that fucking suck. And they're just like, use the Windows sound mixer. Why wouldn't you do that? It's like, okay, yes, obviously in Windows there's a way that you could mute the app, but the idea that you have to do that in this dumb fucking thing that there's no like turn off the music, this is going to take some time, is on them. Fuck this.
Yeah,
fuck
like
that. Fuck that.
100%. Like I could fucking figure out how to mute an app if I wanted to, but it's a goddamn joke that I have to look for that.
You shouldn't have to.
Exactly. Like, so then I got to a screen where like I saw what appeared to be like programming labels for buttons where it said like interact dot extract dot, like all these things where like fly should have been, or like it just gave me like the sort of code directions for everything. So I was like, well, this seems to be early. I wonder. I was like, I wonder. And then it was funny because I like basically figured out what everything meant, and I got to, keep going through the menu. And then as soon as I was able to say like, okay, go, then it crapped out and I had to restart. I uninstalled the whole thing because the downloads wouldn't kick back up again. I could not get that. And then I guess I started the whole process around 11 a.m. And by 10:30 at night, I had tried to fly from EWR to SFO in a propeller plane.
That's Newark.
And look, what am I missing with the regular version of this? Because I use the Game Pass version. Should I get the super duper airport version?
I mean, it's
planes,
bespoke airports and different planes, right?
It's just higher detail airports.
You keep saying bespoke airports. It's never not funny.
It's they're handcrafted in Brooklyn. They smell delicious.
Artisanal airports.
Yes.
My download story. I dropped this in like around 7. No, must have been later than that, like 9 or 10, and was like, okay, I'm gonna install this. Downloaded from the Windows Store super quickly and was like, great, here we go. I'm going to jump in here. And then you open it up and it's like, got some updates to do. Let's get all the packs. And then it started downloading and it does that you're in the application when it's downloading. So you're in Flight Simulator, I should mention.
Yeah.
So it's running and then it does that terrible thing where it's like downloading, extracting, and installing all at the same time, every little tiny thing. So it's not just the size of the file, right? It's not just that you're downloading 120, 150 gigs. It's that every small thing that downloads then has to unzip and then install in the right spot. And you can see it's got progress at the bottom. And I was in a dilemma of like, I'm not going to just leave this running overnight. Like with this just Microsoft Flight Simulator just running on my computer all night, I have to sit here and watch it or do something else and come back, right? Because it's not like it's downloading in the background. It's the thing is open and it doesn't quit when it's done. So yeah, it's bad. That part's really bad. I wish there was just a toggle there, for the sound. Hey, mute that. Hey, they figured that one out on like Commodore 64. No, well, I'll go a little later than that. Let's say some later PC games of like, hey, you want to mute the sound on your crack generator. And
I do not.
And I do not. I want to hear it. Also, a quit when done is the thing they should have, since I should mention I'm on fiber. I'm on gigabit connection here. Even I wanted the damn thing to quit when it was done so I could just go to bed and leave it running. So imagine people who are getting this who are on, 5, 10, 15 meg down or worse. That's gonna be a problem.
For them, they've got 10 DVDs.
For them, if you're in Europe,
Microsoft has a product for you. It's called 10 DVDs.
It's a better way to fly or whatever. So the other thing is you need a pretty steep PC requirements to really get this thing going. And even if you do hit some of those requirements and it's good most of the time, it might not be good some of the time. Like when you first load into a really dense airport or something, or a cockpit like a 747, it's going to probably chunk up and be real rough until everything sorts itself out. I played mostly on high, not ultra. And it's after, an initial load seemed to figure itself out. And sometimes that initial load is very long, especially if you're going again into a dense airport or whatchamacallit, a cockpit. But all that being said, you've loaded in, things have smoothed out. I think it's fantastic after that. I think you're flying a plane in a way that I can only assume is as true to life as they currently can make it. The cockpits do look very nice. I have no idea about the flight model. I don't know if this is real, but you fly and looking out the window, that satellite stuff works. That rendering from up there works in a way that is kind of amazing. And it took me a while to realize, wow, I could just I could kind of just fly anywhere and look at anything. Like, let's just go, because first I was like, I'll fly around Manhattan. Yeah, it looks like Manhattan. Then I was like, well, I can fly across Asia if I wanted to and go look at that and see, how much of that is rendered out there. And I would have no idea because I don't know. I've never been there or seen it from a plane, but that idea is pretty neat. The other thing that was pretty neat was finally getting on with someone like, or just someone else like Drew, and doing multiplayer and being able to fly coordinated with somebody else and like, hey, we're both going to go take a flight and let's go both fly somewhere. That was a lot of fun. You do see other players live on the map. It pulls in live flight data, also pulls in live, if you wanted to, live data for time of day, weather from all different places. It's all super cool in that way. Again, if you're there to geek out on that stuff, if you're there to really embrace that stuff, if you're there to do a barrel roll and try and like fly through buildings and you can do some of that stuff, but it's not made for that. It's gonna bug out in weird ways. Like in the quick look spoilers, I tried to land on the Golden Gate Bridge and eventually I just hit an invisible wall and I couldn't fly. I couldn't roll across the bridge anymore.
Man.
Yeah, so there's
sorry, Vinny.
yeah, and when I landed on it the last time, when I landed on the actual bridge, it just said I was crashed into the water, which so I think it's like not rendered as like this is a surface. Right. So you're going to hit some of that stuff. Also, if you turn on the collision and you turn on the crash stuff, it'll just fade to a black screen. You're not going to shear a wing off. You're not going to like, death spiral out of the air because you pulled too much force on a turn. It's just going to fade to black and say you stressed the plane out too much. You restart. So it's not there to show a fireball of a plane. And I understand that. That is probably for the best, given the world we live in with, all the stuff. Like, I can understand that choice in terms. These are also, they've done stuff like that before. This is all licensed products. These were real planes, and I'm sure none of those manufacturers want show their planes flying into buildings, right? Nobody wants that footage.
Well, I mean, the problem is though you can turn all that collision off, and you can still totally.
Yes.
I mean, it
you can bounce off.
The plane doesn't. The plane does not explode.
Yes.
But if you want to steer a plane into some buildings,
yes.
boy, there are a lot of people taking pictures online of them steering their planes into buildings. That was like the first thing I started seeing a wide variety of, including I think some people that are literally just like trolling their friends by flying into their houses and then sending them screenshots of it. I mean, look, it's 2020. We're all out of our minds. Yeah. So people
and
are
also the game's on Game
tool.
Pass. So it's like, it's so much more accessible to a wider array of, you don't have to like spend any additional money for that goof, right? You're
well,
like,
except Game Pass, but yeah, right.
Except for Game Pass. I mean, if you're already in on that, then you're just like, well, yeah, of course I'm going to download this and crash on my friend's house because fuck that guy.
Yeah. So if you turn that stuff off, the plane does comically just bounce off the ground in a way that is just like
it looks like a child dropping a toy.
Yeah, it does. And
almost worse.
It's kind of fun because then you can do fun stuff like just land the plane upside down and skid it along the ground until you want it to be done. So that's that all being said, some things that you might not know if you jump into this, there is a way to set that plane up to not start in the air on the runway. You can start it parked, and then you can also go in, and it took me a while to find this, but I think it's neat if you're really there to kind of dig into some of the stuff. You can go in and do the checklist, the pre-flight checklist for the plane, and actually it'll show you, it's got a little an eyeball icon next to the thing, and you click that, it'll show you where the thing is, and usually has some flavor text to kind of help you out as well. So something like turn the fuel pump to on, and you're like, I don't know where the fuck the fuel pump is. You can click that, it'll point the camera at it and highlight it in blue, and then a lot of times it'll even have parentheses that's like, that means just pull the whole thing out, and which is very cool and neat. Yeah,
there's just so many like little, I tried doing the checklist stuff because it's just cool. It's just cool, right?
Yeah.
This game is just straight up cool. And I turned the engine on and like this, I thought I was following, all these pre takeoff things. And I didn't realize that like part of pre-takeoff is the plane moving because the moment of takeoff is takeoff.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh shit, I only have a finite amount of time to finish, steps 11 through, steps like 2 through 12 before this thing takes off the goddamn ground. It is fun and horrifying at the same time because of the realism in which you are now aware of that a pilot must go through during, which I'm sure, obviously you're a professional fucking pilot, you got your shit together, but damn, that's wild.
The stuff that I realized, one horrifying thing pilots don't want you to know is that you can't really see shit when you're in the air.
Yeah.
Like there's a button I have mapped on my controller here that just peeks you up over the dashboard a little bit just so you could see out the window because, and everybody, I'm gonna promote Drew's other stream here just for a second because I learned a lot. He did a stream of X-Plane, which is a pretty serious flight sim for people who want to learn to fly, and he went through X-Plane with his trying to do what he would have to do to pass his flight test. I think was like go through the checklist, and what I learned from that is the numbers of the runway correspond to the heading of the runway. Because I was like, when you're flying, they're like land on runway 28. I'm like, I don't know which fucking runway is 28. I'm 3,000 miles up in the air. But that means the runway is aligned with heading 280, which if you get in the right heading, you'll see that. And I was like, oh, that's the kind of stuff they don't teach you in school. But that's the kind of stuff that like it wasn't necessarily in there, maybe in a tooltip. So I recommend watching that. It was kind of fun. They do have air traffic control. It seems pretty good. It's the computerized AI voice and you click a button that says respond. They do have weather and stuff like that on the I don't know what it's called, but over the radio. It's a lot of interesting things. If you want to jump in there and you have Game Pass and you're debating whether to get it, I would definitely try it out before you buy it because once you get through the tutorials, they have a couple of activities. Some are landing challenges. And some are flying using visual navigation, kind of looking at landmarks and flying. And you get achievements for those. You get scored on those. But after that, it's mostly pick a plane and fly. And if that's not up for you, if you just don't want to fly from airport to airport, kind of like a trucking game, like those trucking simulators. If you're not up for just trucking, I'm not sure how much that's going to be for you. It's not an action game. You're not in a MiG. You're not running around shooting things down.
Also, I'm going to say, as someone who's played a lot of these trucking simulators, those are a level of complicated several steps below what Flight Simulator is trying to do. Like, as much as there are definitely some things you have to do to drive a truck properly, it is nowhere near the level of complexity it seems like you have to do to even fly one of the basic planes in this game. Also, in the truck simulator games, there are not weird AI-generated obelisks coming out of random cities that you have to avoid from time to time.
Well, like, what's the pre-drive checklist in a trucking simulator? Is it like you got to stuff in some chaw, punch 19 on the CB radio,
roll up your sleeves.
Yeah. Make sure you know where the next Circle K is, Flying J, and that's pretty much it.
And it's not like you're flying here.
Look out for Smokey.
Yep.
Maybe someday they will allow mods that have like, hey, you're running a business here and you got to get this passenger, like Crazy Taxi or Cargo or whatever. But that is not there now. The other thing that's not there that I kind of wish were in there were, at least I didn't see it, plane customization. There was a point when I had played so much in that fucking Cessna, and I played at night and I'm turning the lights off, just kind of sitting back on the runway, parked, and it was like, you hear the crickets going because it's like nighttime out there. This time is all synced up. I just flown into LaGuardia, and I taxied off, and you get to turn all the lights off, and you're just kind of sitting in your plane, and there's nothing left to do, right? Like now I have to turn the game off. I don't know. I can't get out of the plane and do anything. I almost wish you can customize the plane in a way to be like, this is my plane. Like I put like a little pair of dice or something on the window. I'm sure they'll sell that at some point. But like, I want that same
put anime ladies, like just let the Forza vinyl stuff come right in. Import that Pringles can guy on the side of my plane. Was there any kind of like air traffic control chat built into the game? Any kind of voice chat type stuff?
So you can set some of this as well, but there is text to speech in it for that stuff. If you watch again, if you see Drew's stream on his Cloth Map YouTube channel, he subscribes to a service which is actual human beings who do air traffic control. And I didn't ask him. Maybe he said it wasn't in. I feel like I did ask him. That's a thing that may or may not be in the game. I'm not sure. That hooking those hooks for actual people doing air traffic control. But if you watch his stream, it's no joke. Those people are not fucking around. Like they're not there to goof off. They're there to, you have to be on it. And you see Drew get into a little bit of a thing with one of the air traffic controllers on that stream, which is kind of wild. But yeah, it's automated. Sometimes I feel like it doesn't do the text to speech, which is weird. Sometimes it'll just display it in a box and you just hear like and sometimes it reads it all out loud. There are things in there that if I invest in this game, I'm sure I will wind up at some point printing out a map for LaGuardia so that I know which way to taxi on all the runways and all that stuff. There are things that are not necessarily made for jumping between 35 different planes in 35,000 different airports every 5 minutes, right? Like there's some stuff you kind of have to do your homework on if you want to do this the right way. That being said, I'm probably going to spend money on this thing. I'm probably going to get a flight yoke and
no, probably. What are you even using?
Pedals and I've enjoyed it so much. I had the kids down here flying from across Long Island. My son landed a plane at Kennedy. It was just fun. They had fun doing it.
How did he land? I can't even fucking
He did it. He did it with no assist on. He did it. He was able to do it. He hit the brakes and was able to do it. And I tried it with my Track IR. I didn't do it for the quick look because that sometimes makes people vomit. So I turned it off for that. But I can't wait to get in there and do some more of it. It's been a real blast checking it out. All I want to do is flip all the switches, and that's in that game. So I love flip. I want to flip switches. That's it. That's
cool.
Yeah. Again, it's on
proud lowrider for the PlayStation 2. Hit them switches.
Hit them switches. Again, it's on Steam and on the Windows Store, and you can get it on the PC Game Pass. I think it's supposed to come out at some point on consoles, on the Xbox family of consoles, but that is not available right now. So try it out if you have that Game Pass. I'm curious how many people they get from putting it on Game Pass that are like, I really like flight sims, I guess. And turns out I'm way in on this. That store is going to be something, man. That store has the potential to be train simulator style of Microsoft now makes the majority of its money from flight simulator store stuff. It's got already so many things in it that you can buy. And it's wild. I think even more airports and more detailed stuff. Third-party developers are already in that store, and it's wild.